She poured her last water on a burning wolf. When he shifted, the Alpha King called her his savior. The sun had burned the sky red that day, and the land below was dry and cracked. Rivers that once carried silver water were now little more than ribbons of dust. In the villages scattered across the borderlands, the people whispered of curses and of creatures that walked the night. They spoke of wolves that were more than wolves, of kings and queens who ruled with fire and fear, and of magic that could burn a soul alive. But most villagers did not believe such things. They had too much to fear in the present: hunger, thirst, and death. Alara walked along the edge of the village she called home. Her feet were bare, coated in the dust of the endless fields. Her dress, thin and torn at the edges, clung to her small frame as she carried a cracked water flask. It was her last water, the last of everything she had. She had already shared her meager supply with the old woman who lived alone, with the children whose parents had left or died. Now she had none left for herself. And yet, the sky promised no rain, no relief. As she walked, she heard a distant sound, a low, eerie cry unlike any animal she had ever heard. It was a sound of pain, anger, and fear all mixed into one. Alara stopped. Her heart beat fast. Part of her told her to run back to the safety of her village. But another part, the part that had always dreamed of more than just survival, told her to keep moving. The sound grew louder until it became a roar that shook the air. The earth beneath her feet seemed to tremble. Then, in a clearing surrounded by charred trees, she saw it. A wolf, massive and wild, its fur black as midnight, burned in flames that shimmered blue. The fire did not consume him like normal fire. It danced along his body like water over stone, yet he howled as if the flames tore him apart from the inside. Alara's heart ached as she watched. Even at a distance, she could see the runes etched into the stones around him. Strange markings glowed with fire magic, trapping him in a prison of pain. The villagers had always said that these lands were cursed, that some creatures were too dangerous to approach. But she could not turn away. Her hands tightened around the flask and her mind raced. She had no water left for herself. She could die here just as easily as he could. And yet, something in his eyes stopped her from moving. Golden, intelligent eyes that seemed to look not at her but through her. They held the same fear and loneliness she had felt her whole life. She knew what it meant to be trapped, to be burned by a world that showed no mercy. Slowly, she stepped forward, her feet barely making a sound on the dry ground. She knelt beside the wolf, her small hands trembling. She whispered softly, though she did not know if he could understand her. "I don't have much, but maybe this will help." Her thumb pressed against the cracked cork of the flask and water trickled down. It was almost nothing, barely enough to wet her hands. She poured it over the wolf's flames. The water hissed as it touched him, turning into steam that smelled faintly of metal and ash. The fire screamed as though in anger, then began to shrink, curling into itself until it vanished completely. The runes in the stones cracked with a sharp sound, sparks flying like tiny stars. The wolf collapsed. His massive body shook and his golden eyes softened, no longer filled with pain but with exhaustion. Alara wanted to move closer to touch him, to see if he was alive. Her hands hovered over his fur, trembling when suddenly he shifted. His body stretched and changed in ways that made her gasp. Bones elongated, fur melted into skin, and his massive wolf form became a tall, wounded man. His hair was dark, streaked with blue from the fire. His body bore the marks of pain, the echoes of the flames that had tried to claim him. Alara stepped back, startled. Her small heart raced, but curiosity and awe held her in place. The man's golden eyes met hers, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. He spoke, his voice low and rough, yet soft enough to carry through the night. You saved me," he said. Alara blinked. She had expected him to roar or attack, not speak. I had to," she replied, her voice shaking. "I didn't have much left, but I couldn't let you burn." The man or wolfman paused. He looked at her as if trying to understand her words, trying to measure the meaning behind them. "You risked everything for me," he said. There was a long silence. Why? Alara swallowed hard. She did not know why. Perhaps it was because she saw herself in him, trapped and punished by a world that would not forgive her for being alive. Perhaps it was because she knew that no one else would ever choose to save him. She shook her head. "I don't know," she admitted. Maybe because no one else would." He studied her, his golden eyes reflecting the last light of the dying sun. "You are human," he said, a statement more than a question. "Yet you have the courage of something more." Alara's chest tightened. "I am just trying to survive," she whispered. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Survival can be brave," he said. "Sometimes it is the most powerful magic there is." She noticed the pain in his movements. Every step, every breath seemed to cost him something. "You're hurt," she said. "You need rest." "I cannot rest yet," he replied. "The curse, it is not fully gone. I am free from the fire, but not from what bound me." Alara felt a chill. She had helped him, yes, but the danger was not over. She looked at the broken runes in the stones and the faint blue sparks that lingered. What will happen to you?" He looked toward the horizon, where the first stars were beginning to pierce the darkening sky. "I am bound to a kingdom that is lost, to a crown that no longer has a king. The curse is old, older than the villages here. I have suffered for years, and now," he glanced at her, a faint smile forming, "now you have come into my life." Alara shivered, not from cold but from the weight of his gaze. She had never met someone who looked at her with such intensity, such raw emotion. Something in her chest tightened. She had helped a wolf, yes, but she had not expected to meet a king, an alpha trapped by fire, by magic, by fate. The wind stirred around them, carrying a faint scent of smoke and wild herbs. The trees, though charred, seemed to bend slightly toward them, as if acknowledging her act. The wolfman studied her again, his eyes never leaving hers. "Your courage is rare," he said. "Most humans would have run. Most humans would have let the fire consume me." "I couldn't," she said simply. For a moment they both were silent. The night grew deeper and the stars shone like small candles in a vast dark room. Crickets sang, the wind whispered, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Then he spoke again, his voice softer this time. "You have saved me from the fire, but there are greater dangers ahead, dangers that will not be so easily defeated." Alara felt fear rise in her chest. I don't know if I can help," she said. "I'm just a girl with nothing." "Perhaps," he said slowly. "But sometimes it is the smallest flame that lights the darkest night." The wind carried his words, and Alara felt a strange warmth in her heart. Despite the fear, despite the danger, despite the unknown ahead, she felt needed. For the first time she felt that her life, small as it seemed, had meaning beyond survival. The wolfman shifted again slightly, as if testing the strength of his new form. "I am Calethorn," he said. "Alpha of the North, king by blood, cursed by fire. You have saved me, Alara. Remember your name, for I will not forget yours. You are my savior." Alara's heart thumped in her chest. Savior," she repeated, disbelief in her voice. "Yes," Calethorn said, his gaze unwavering. "You did what no one else could. You chose life over fear. You chose mercy over cruelty, and for that I am bound to you. Whether you wish it or not, your fate is now tied to mine." She swallowed hard. The weight of his words pressed on her chest. She had only wanted to help a suffering creature. She had not expected to be drawn into a world of kings, curses, and magic. And yet, as she looked at him, at the man who had once been fire and now stood wounded yet alive, she felt something she had never felt before, a spark of courage. "Then I will help," she said quietly. Calethorn's eyes softened just a fraction. "Good," he said. "But know this, the journey ahead will not be easy. The crown that cursed me still exists, and those who burned me will not rest until they have finished their work. You have chosen to walk beside me, Alara. There will be dangers, tests, and trials that will try your heart and your soul. Alara nodded, determination building inside her. I can face them, she said. Calethorn stepped closer, his gaze intense. We begin at dawn. You will rest tonight, for the path we take is long and it will test both of us. But remember, what you did today was the first step in a story that will change the fate of kingdoms. Alara looked at the stars, the charred trees, and the clearing where fire had once consumed a mighty wolf. She had survived hunger, thirst, and fear. Now she would face magic, kings, and curses. And though her heart raced with fear, she felt a strange hope. Somehow she had poured her last water on a burning wolf, and he had called her his savior. And in that moment she understood. Life was not just about surviving. Sometimes it was about choosing to care, to act, even when everything seemed lost. And with that thought she closed her eyes, letting the cool night air wrap around her. Tomorrow she would begin a journey unlike any she had ever known, a journey with a wolf who was a king, a man who had been fire, and a fate that was now tied to hers forever. The night whispered around them. The stars held their secrets, and in the shadows the first hints of an adventure were waiting to awaken. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky with shades of gold and pale pink. The clearing where the fire had once burned now lay quiet, almost sacred. The trees, though charred, seemed to stand taller in the morning light, as if bearing witness to what had just happened. Alara stirred from her light sleep, the memory of the night's events pressing against her mind. She had saved a wolf. She had poured her last water onto him. And now the wolf was a man, a wounded, magnificent man, golden-eyed and powerful beyond anything she had ever imagined. Calethorn stood a few steps away, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains. His movements were careful, as though each step required effort, yet there was a strength in him that radiated even in his exhaustion. The change from fire-bound beast to man had left him fragile, but his presence still commanded the clearing. Alara watched him, feeling a mix of fear and awe. She could hardly believe the night had been real. "You should eat," Calethorn said suddenly, turning to her. His voice was calm, yet carried authority. "There is bread and fruit in my pack, not much, but enough for you to regain some strength." Alara nodded, grateful for the small comfort. She moved toward the pack he had brought with him, though she did so cautiously. I don't know what to do next," she admitted. "I've never met someone like you." Calethorn's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Few have," he said, "and fewer still survive." Alara's heart skipped a beat. "Survive," she repeated. "You mean the fire?" "Yes," he said. "And the curse?" "The fire was only the beginning. I am Calethorn, Alpha King of the North. Once I ruled over lands where wolves and humans lived together. But betrayal came, and the crown that should have been mine became the instrument of my suffering. I was burned alive, left to die, cursed to remain half alive, half broken, until someone brave enough helped me." Alara's fingers froze on the bread she held. "Alpha King," she whispered. "Your royalty?" Calethorn nodded. "By blood, yes. But that title has lost its power. I am a king without a kingdom, a ruler without subjects, a wolf without a pack. Until tonight I was nothing but fire and pain." The weight of his words pressed on her chest. She had expected a beast of the night, a magical creature perhaps, but not royalty. And yet in his golden eyes she saw no pride, no arrogance, only loss and a quiet longing for what had been stolen from him. Why tell me this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm just a girl from the village. I helped you because it was right, not because I wanted to be part of a story about kings and curses." Calethorn studied her silently, then nodded slowly. "Because you are tied to this now, Alara. What you did last night, it was more than an act of kindness. It has bound you to my fate. You are no longer simply a girl from a village. You are my savior, whether you wish it or not." Alara's breath caught in her throat. "Savior," she repeated, her mind struggling to grasp the reality of his words. I don't know if I can be that. I don't even know who you are really." Calethorn's gaze softened, just enough to show a flicker of vulnerability. "I am Calethorn," he said again, more firmly this time. "And I am a king who has been given a second chance because of you. But the world we live in is not kind. There are those who will seek to destroy me, to finish what the curse began. And if I fall, you will suffer for it too." Alara's heart tightened. She had always known that life was hard, but she had never imagined walking alongside someone so powerful, so cursed, so dangerous. And yet she felt a strange certainty inside her. She could not abandon him. "Not now, not ever. I'll stay," she said quietly, almost to herself. I will help you, even if I don't know how." Calethorn's eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger but with focus. "Very well," he said. "But understand this, Alara. You are not merely a helper. You are my companion in this path. The journey ahead will be filled with danger, treachery, and tests that will challenge both your courage and your heart. You must be prepared for more than you have faced so far." Alara nodded, determination rising in her chest. I can face it," she said. Calethorn studied her for a long moment, then spoke again. "Tonight we begin the journey to my kingdom. It lies far to the north, beyond forests, rivers, and mountains. It is a land broken by war, fire, and betrayal. But it is also a land that remembers me as its king, if only faintly. And there we will discover the full truth of the curse, and of what must be done to break it completely." The thought of traveling to a distant, dangerous land filled Alara with fear, but also with a strange excitement. She had never left the borderlands before. She had never seen the world beyond her village. And now she would walk beside a king, a wolf, a man who had been burned alive and had survived. "Will it be dangerous?" she asked, her voice small. Calethorn's eyes darkened. "Yes," he said. "The human queen who betrayed me still rules parts of this land. She wields magic older and stronger than anything you have known. She will seek to destroy me and anyone who stands with me. We must be careful. We must be vigilant. But if we survive, if we succeed, the curse can be broken. My kingdom can rise again, and you will have played a part in that. You will have changed history." Alara felt a shiver run down her spine. She had never thought her life could matter on such a scale. She had always believed she was too small, too ordinary. And yet here she was, standing beside a man who had survived fire and magic, tasked with a journey that could change kingdoms. They began to walk, leaving the clearing behind. The forest around them was quiet, the morning mist curling around the charred trees. Birds began to sing faintly, their songs fragile in the pale light. Alara kept close to Calethorn, feeling the weight of his presence beside her. He did not speak often, but when he did, it was to guide her, to warn her, or to share some fragment of his past. As they walked, Calethorn told her stories of his kingdom, the lands of the north where humans and wolves once lived in harmony, where magic and nature coexisted, and where the crown was a symbol of protection rather than fear. He spoke of betrayal, of the council that had turned against him, of the fire that had taken his life and his throne. Alara listened, enraptured and horrified. She could not imagine such cruelty, such power, such loss. "You have suffered greatly," she said finally, her voice soft. "Yes," Calethorn admitted, "and yet I am still alive, because of you. That is why I must return, why I must reclaim what was stolen, and why you must walk with me." The day passed slowly as they traveled. They crossed dry fields, shallow streams, and forests where the trees whispered secrets of old magic. Alara began to notice small things. The way Calethorn's eyes seemed to see more than the world showed, the way animals fled or approached him with a strange respect, and the subtle hum of power that seemed to surround him like a shadow. By evening they reached the edge of a small river, its water glimmering in the fading light. Calethorn knelt beside it, washing the dust and ash from his hands and face. Alara watched him silently, feeling a strange mix of admiration and fear. She had never met anyone like him. He was powerful, yes, but he was also wounded, human in ways that made her heart ache. "You must rest," Calethorn said, noticing her gaze. Even the strongest must pause. Tomorrow we continue. The path to my kingdom is long, and the dangers increase as we approach the north. Alara nodded, kneeling beside him. I will rest, she said. But tell me again, why me? Why did the curse need me? Calethorn's golden eyes met hers. Because the curse was never meant to be broken by force, by magic, or by fear. It was meant to test whether a ruler could still be saved by mercy, by choice. You chose to help me when all others would have left me to burn. That choice, it has power, and it has bound you to me, Alara. Whether you understand it now or not, your fate is tied to mine. Alara felt a strange warmth in her chest, a mix of fear and pride. She had only done what felt right, and yet it had changed the course of a kingdom's future. She realized that the journey ahead would not only test her courage, but her heart, her loyalty, and her very understanding of the world. Night fell and the forest grew dark. The stars shone brightly above, their light reflecting on the river. Calethorn sat silently, his gaze on the distant horizon, while Alara tried to rest. She could not stop thinking about him, about the fire, about the kingdom he had lost, and the journey they would take together. Somehow, she knew that the path ahead would not be easy. They would face enemies, magic, and betrayal. But she also knew that she could not turn back. Not now, not ever. She had poured her last water on a burning wolf, and he had called her his savior. And that bond, fragile as it seemed, would carry them forward through fire, darkness, and fate itself. As she drifted into a light sleep, she heard Calethorn whisper almost to himself, "Together we will face the crown. Together we will reclaim the north. And together we will break the curse that has bound me for so long." Alara's eyes closed fully, the river's gentle sound lulling her. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing. She was no longer just a girl from a village. She was part of a story much larger than herself, a story of fire, courage, and a bond that neither time nor magic could break. And with that thought, she let the night embrace her, ready for the journey that awaited at dawn. The journey north was harder than Alara had imagined. The mountains loomed ahead, jagged and dark against the pale sky, and the forests grew thicker, almost alive with whispers. The wind carried scents she could not name, of herbs, smoke, and something older, older than the world she had known. Even the air felt heavy, as if it remembered the blood and fire of battles long past. Calethorn walked ahead, his steps deliberate and careful. Each movement was measured, as if he carried not only his own weight but the weight of a kingdom lost. His golden eyes scanned the path constantly, watching for danger, for traps, for magic. Alara tried to keep pace, though fatigue and fear threatened to slow her down. She was small, human, and fragile compared to him, yet the bond between them, forged by fire and mercy, gave her courage she had never known. "You must keep your mind clear," Calethorn said one evening as they crossed a river whose waters ran fast and cold. "The north is not forgiving. The land itself remembers my fall. Every shadow, every stone, every wind may hide a danger waiting to strike." Alara nodded, shivering from the cold more than the warning. I will try," she said. "But sometimes it feels as though everything is against us." "Then we must be stronger than the world," Calethorn replied. "Stronger than fear, stronger than magic, stronger than those who would see me destroyed. And you have already shown that strength, even in your fear." Alara felt warmth at his words, though she tried not to show it. She was learning that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. And yet, every time she looked at him, she wondered how much of his strength was real and how much was bound by the curse that still lingered like a shadow over him. The first night in the forest, they camped beneath an ancient oak. Calethorn had built a small fire, and Alara helped gather dry branches, careful to stay close to him. The forest was alive with sounds, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and an occasional howl that made her heart beat faster. Calethorn did not speak much, only giving instructions and warnings, but his presence was comforting, a steady force amid the unknown. "Ilara," he said softly as she arranged the firewood, "the curse is not just fire. It is fear, betrayal, and hunger for power. It was placed upon me to test whether mercy still exists in this world. You have passed the first test, but there are others. And soon, we will face the humans who burned me, the ones who seek to finish what they started." Ilara looked up at him, her eyes wide. "The humans?" she asked. They would do that, even now." Calethorn's face darkened. "Yes, the queen who ordered the fire still lives. She wields magic older than the mountains themselves. She sees me as a threat, as a stain upon her rule. And she will not stop until the last trace of me, and anyone who helps me, is gone." Ilara felt a shiver run through her. She had faced hunger, fear, and fire, but this was a different kind of danger. It was political, magical, and personal all at once. And she realized that by helping Calethorn, she had placed herself directly in the path of those who would kill him. That night, sleep was shallow. Every sound in the forest made her jump. Every shadow seemed to move. Calethorn remained alert, his golden eyes scanning the darkness even as he slept lightly, always ready, always watchful. She watched him, thinking about the fire, the wolf, and the man he had become. Somehow, she felt that she understood him more than she understood anyone else in her life. He carried pain, loss, and responsibility in a way that was almost unbearable. And yet, he still walked forward, determined to reclaim what was his. The next day, they encountered their first threat. A band of riders emerged from the trees, cloaked and armed, their faces hidden. They were human, but their eyes were cruel, their movements precise. Calethorn stepped forward, placing himself between Ilara and the riders. "You will not harm her," he said, his voice low, yet carrying the weight of command. The riders laughed, a sound that chilled the air. "And who are you?" one demanded. "A broken man who thinks a girl can save him." Calethorn's eyes glowed faintly, the golden light reflecting the power within him. "I am Calethorn, Alpha King of the North. Step aside, or you will regret it." The leader of the riders sneered. "Alpha King, burned alive, you are nothing now, and she is human, weak. Easy to take." Calethorn's hands moved swiftly, though he did not strike. The power that had once been caged within fire now flowed through him, unseen yet undeniable. The riders faltered, their confidence shaken by the strength that radiated from him. Ilara's heart pounded as she watched, fear and awe mingling. "Leave now," Calethorn commanded, his voice rising, "or the forest will remember your trespass and it will not forgive you." The riders exchanged uncertain glances, then slowly backed away, disappearing into the trees. Ilara exhaled, her body trembling. That was amazing," she whispered. Calethorn turned to her, his expression unreadable. "It is not enough to be amazed," he said. "You must be ready. The world does not wait for admiration. Danger is constant. And soon we will face the queen herself." Ilara nodded, swallowing her fear. She realized that admiration alone would not protect her. Courage, quick thinking, and trust in Calethorn would be necessary if they were to survive. As they continued their journey, the bond between them grew stronger. Ilara learned to read Calethorn's moods, his subtle movements, the way his eyes shifted when danger was near. Calethorn, in turn, began to trust her instincts, valuing her observations and decisions. She was human, yes, and small, but her courage and quick thinking often saved them from situations that would have overwhelmed him alone. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they reached the edge of a dark forest. Beyond it lay the plains that led to Calethorn's kingdom. The trees were twisted and blackened, as though the curse of the land itself had left scars. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying warnings of what lay ahead. "We must rest here," Calethorn said, his tone firm. "Tomorrow we enter the forest. It is a place of old magic and old spirits. They will test us, try to turn us against each other, try to break our resolve. We must be ready." Ilara nodded, gathering firewood and preparing a small meal. Her hands shook slightly, but her resolve was firm. She had come too far to turn back now. She had chosen to help Calethorn, and she would see it through, no matter the danger. That night, as the fire crackled and the stars shone above, Calethorn spoke of the past. He told her of his kingdom, once prosperous and strong, and of the betrayal that had led to his fall. The council that had turned against him, the humans who had burned him alive, the magic that had cursed him, all of it painted a picture of a man who had suffered beyond measure. "I lost everything," Calethorn said quietly. "My crown, my people, my home, and for years I thought I would die alone, forgotten by the world." Alara listened, her heart aching. "And now?" she asked softly. "Now," he said, looking at her, "I have hope, because of you. You have given me a second chance, not just to live, but to reclaim what was taken. But we must be careful. The Queen will not wait, and the curse, it still lingers, testing me, testing us." Alara reached out, placing a hand lightly on his arm. "We'll face it together," she said. "No matter what comes." Calethorn's eyes softened just a fraction as he looked at her. "Yes," he said, "together." But even as they spoke, a shadow moved in the forest. Alara did not see it at first, but Calethorn did. His eyes narrowed, and he stepped in front of her, placing himself between her and the darkness beyond the trees. "They are coming," he whispered. "The Queen's spies. They have tracked me this far." Alara's heart raced. She had known the journey would be dangerous, but this close, this real, it was terrifying. Yet she did not move away. She stood firm, ready to face whatever came with him. The night held its breath. The fire flickered, casting long shadows across the clearing. And in those shadows, the first signs of an ambush appeared, figures moving silently, weapons glinting in the firelight. Calethorn's hand moved to the hilt of his sword, his body coiled like a wolf ready to strike. "Stay close," he warned, "and trust me." Alara nodded, feeling fear, but also something stronger, courage born of the bond between them. She had poured her last water on a burning wolf. She had survived the fire, the curse, and the unknown. And now she would face whatever came by his side, ready to fight for life, for hope, and for the future that they might build together. And in the darkness of the forest, as the first attack began, Alara understood the truth of Calethorn's words. The journey was far from over. The crown that devoured, the curse that haunted, and the enemies that hunted them would test every step, every choice, and every heartbeat. But she would not falter. Not while Calethorn walked beside her, not while she carried the spark of mercy that had saved a king, a wolf, a man from the fire. Tomorrow, the true challenge would begin. The forest grew darker as the ambush began. Shadows moved like whispers, and the wind carried a strange, cold magic that made Alara shiver. Calethorn stepped in front of her, his golden eyes scanning the darkness. The Queen's spies had come, and their purpose was clear. They wanted him dead. And anyone who stood with him would die as well. "Stay close," Calethorn whispered. "Do not run, trust me." Alara nodded, gripping the small dagger she had been given. Her hands shook slightly, but she did not let go. She had come too far to falter now. Her courage, born from mercy and choice, burned brighter than any fear. The first of the spies moved forward, emerging from the trees with weapons drawn. Calethorn's movements were swift, controlled, and precise. He did not strike blindly. He moved like a wolf, a predator, and a king who had survived fire. With every motion, the golden light in his eyes flared, a quiet warning that he was more than human now, more than the crown and curse that sought to destroy him. Alara stayed close, watching and learning. She could see the pattern in his movements, the way he anticipated their attacks, the way he used the environment to his advantage. Her heart pounded, but she did not move away. Every time a shadow lunged at them, she flinched, then steadied herself. She had chosen to walk this path with him, and now she would stand by him, even if fear shook her to her core. One spy lunged from the shadows, aiming for Calethorn's side. Alara acted without thinking. She stepped forward, raising her dagger, and swung it to block the weapon. The metal clashed with a loud ring, and the spy stumbled back, surprised. Calethorn's golden eyes widened slightly, but he did not scold her. Instead, he struck the attacker with controlled strength, sending him sprawling into the underbrush. "You are learning fast," Calethorn said quietly, his voice steady despite the fight around them. Alara swallowed, breathing hard. I have to," she said. "I can't let them hurt you." The fight continued, brief and chaotic. The spies were skilled, but Calethorn's presence, his power, and his experience made him nearly unstoppable. Shadows and whispers of magic tried to confuse them, but the bond between Alara and Calethorn kept them focused. She moved when he moved, fought when he fought, and slowly she realized something remarkable. She was not afraid anymore. Not truly. After the last spy fell or fled, the forest grew quiet again. The magic in the trees had faded, leaving only the faint scent of smoke and earth. Calethorn turned to Alara, his expression serious. "You are brave," he said, "but the queen will not stop. She is patient, cruel, and powerful. This was only a test. The real challenge lies ahead in my kingdom." Alara nodded, her resolve firm. "Then we continue," she said, "no matter what." The next day they began the final stretch to the northern lands. The mountains rose higher, jagged and gray against the cold sky. The air was thinner here, sharper, and carried the faint scent of ancient magic. Calethorn moved steadily, though the strain of the curse and the long journey was visible in his posture. Alara matched his pace, keeping close, determined not to fall behind. As they approached the ruins of Calethorn's kingdom, the land seemed to remember the fire, the betrayal, and the pain. Charred stones and broken towers marked the once great cities. Wolves watched from the shadows, curious and cautious. The wind carried whispers, soft and mournful, as if the land itself mourned what had been lost. "This is my home," Calethorn said quietly, his voice carrying a mix of sadness and determination. "And yet it feels like a place that belongs to no one." Alara looked at him, sensing the depth of his grief. "It still has life," she said softly. "Even the wolves, even the wind, they remember you. And I am here too. We can help." Calethorn's golden eyes met hers. For the first time there was a softness, almost vulnerability. "You have given me hope," he said, "but the curse is not fully broken. To do that I must face the queen herself, and you must be ready for what comes." Alara swallowed hard. She had expected danger, yes, but the thought of facing the queen, the one who had burned him alive, filled her with fear. And yet she could not turn back. She had walked too far, fought too hard, and her bond with Calethorn was stronger than any fear. That night they camped among the ruins. Calethorn's wolves came cautiously, surrounding them, watching, protective and loyal. The fire crackled in the remains of a stone hearth. Calethorn spoke of the queen's power, of the ancient magic she commanded, and of the trials they would face in the palace that awaited them. "You must understand," he said, his golden eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. "The queen's magic is not ordinary. It feeds on fear and anger. It will try to turn us against each other. It will show visions, temptations, and illusions. We must trust each other no matter what we see." Alara nodded. I trust you," she said softly. Calethorn's gaze softened. "And I trust you. That is why I have come this far with you. You have strength, courage, and a heart that has chosen mercy when all else failed. That choice, it will be our greatest weapon." The next morning they approached the palace, once grand and towering, now scarred by fire and magic. The gates were twisted, the walls broken, and the air carried a strange, heavy silence. Wolves circled the perimeter, their low growls echoing through the empty courtyards. Calethorn's presence seemed to awaken the land. Stones trembled faintly, and the air shimmered with residual magic. They entered the palace cautiously. Shadows moved along the walls, and whispers echoed through the halls. The queen awaited them in the throne room, her eyes cold, her presence sharp and dangerous. She did not speak at first, only studied them as if measuring the worth of the man and the girl who dared enter her domain. "You have returned," she said finally, her voice smooth, yet edged with ice. "After all these years, and you bring a human with you." Calethorn stepped forward, his posture strong despite the exhaustion. "I have returned," he said, his golden eyes blazing, "and she stands with me, because mercy cannot be broken and because your fire will not consume me again." The queen laughed softly. "Mercy, fire. You speak as though your life is more than it has ever been. But you forget, it is not enough to survive the fire. To reclaim a kingdom, you must face me fully, and only one of you may leave this room alive." Alara stepped closer to Calethorn, her heart steady. "We do not fight alone," she said. "Together we are stronger than your fire, stronger than your magic." The queen's eyes narrowed and she raised her hands. Magic surged, swirling like smoke and shadows. The palace trembled. Calethorn moved instantly, stepping in front of Alara, protecting her as he had promised. The ground shook beneath them, and the air burned with power. But then something extraordinary happened. Alara's courage, her act of mercy, and her unshakable choice to stand with Calethorn began to affect the magic. The shadows faltered, the smoke wavered, and the fire that had been poised to destroy them refused to obey the queen. Calethorn's eyes widened. "The fire, it recognizes her," he whispered. Alara did not understand fully, but she felt a warmth spread through her chest. The same warmth she had felt when she poured her last water on him. The same warmth that had tied her to him, that had given him hope, and that now seemed to fight alongside them. The queen's power faltered. Her expression shifted from confidence to disbelief. Calethorn moved forward, his golden eyes blazing, and the magic that had cursed him for years began to unravel. Each step he took weakened the curse, the chains of fire and betrayal falling away like ashes. Alara reached out, her hand brushing his arm. "You're free," she whispered. "Yes," Calethorn said, his voice strong, steady. "Because of you." The queen's magic collapsed entirely, leaving only silence and the faint smell of smoke. Wolves emerged from the shadows, circling protectively around Calethorn and Alara. The curse was broken. The kingdom, though scarred, was alive, and the bond between the girl and the Alpha King was stronger than any fire, any magic, or any betrayal. Calethorn turned to Alara, his golden eyes full of gratitude and something deeper, something tender. "You are my savior," he said softly. "Not just because you saved me from fire, but because you reminded me that mercy still exists in this world. You have given me life again, and I will never forget it." Alara's heart swelled. She had started this journey as a girl with nothing, with only a cracked flask of water and courage. And now she stood beside a king, a wolf, a man reborn in a kingdom that was alive again because of their choice. I didn't do it alone," she said quietly. "You fought too. You believed too." Calethorn shook his head. "No, it was your mercy that broke the chains, your courage that gave me the strength to survive. You are not small, Alara. You are as mighty as any king because your heart chose hope when the world would have chosen fear." The sun rose higher, spilling light across the ruined palace. Wolves howled in celebration, their voices echoing through the mountains. The land seemed to breathe, alive again after years of sorrow. And in that moment, Alara realized something she had never understood before. Courage, mercy, and love were stronger than fire, stronger than curses, stronger than betrayal. Calethorn reached out, taking her hand. "Stay with me," he said. "Not as a savior, not as a symbol, but as my equal. Together, we will rebuild this kingdom. Together, we will walk into a future that is ours to shape." Alara nodded, feeling the warmth of hope and trust fill her heart. "Together," she said. And as the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of earth, fire, and freedom, they stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The curse was broken, the kingdom was alive, and two hearts, bound by choice and courage, had found each other in the fire that neither could forget. The night fell, calm and serene. Wolves circled around them, and the mountain stood tall and proud. For the first time in many years, the kingdom breathed freely, and so did the girl who had poured her last water on a burning wolf, and the king who had called her his savior.